Namaste. There is something which I think children with a new consciousness, especially, find it most strange when they see their parents quarrel or when they see people quarreling. It was one of the things that, you know, I don't know if people have experienced or not, but um, in a small villages, in certain places, there is a kind of humanity which enjoys quarreling. And it enjoys quarreling for no reason. Actually, there is no reason for quarreling ever. But at one place, when I had read Shri letter, one of the letters he says it's invariably quarrels are for small, insignificant things. But the lower vital gives so much importance to it, takes so much interest in it, that it enjoys to quarrel. It's almost like a food. So this is how human consciousness is. But if we have a vaster vision, if we know where we have to go, then all these small little things will appear so trivial and insignificant. That's why the mother says that always step back, look at life with a smile, and see that all that is happening in your life, what is its real importance and significance. And she says that when you really thus look back, you will see that most of the things have little or no importance with regard to that which you are seeking, which is eternal, which is permanent, which is true. This, of course, for a sadhak. But even otherwise in life, the mother says that one can live without quarreling. Now, this is news to most human beings. How can one live without quarreling? So she gives us a wonderful formula and reveals to us a secret truth. Actually, even if we forget everything else, just logically, quarrel, how does it help? It just saps energy. Okay, maybe for some time one feels relaxed because one is released, vent, what is called as venting. I don't know what it has meant, because venting, people take great joy. Oh, I just wanted to vent. You know what happens when you vent? When you vent, you have thrown away certain forces from your nature. True, they were troubling you. There was anger and you have thrown it out. Whether on a punching bag or on somebody who is a punching bag. But what happens? Because you have allowed it to be thrown, thus there is a vacuum. What fills that vacuum? The same forces which will come. And every time you do it, you get into a vicious cycle of venting, allowing this force. Venting, allowing, because that emptiness has to be filled. And only divine can fill it. I remember of course this story has many meanings, but its visuals were very interesting. And I used to wonder what does it mean. But later on, one of the meanings that I drew of the story was this. It's a story from Mahabharata. And there is this, one of the Magad kings called Jarasandh. So he was born, his two sides were as if, like a Siamese twin, but it's in reverse. They were loosely tied together. And there is a demoness who joins it. So it starts with, doing something very unnatural. This child was not supposed to survive, and he grows into a tyrant king. So he does a yagya where he must give Narbali, actually offer human beings 100 prince. And if he offers 100 prince, then he will become invincible. And he has a very nice son. I think he's Sudhanva. So what he does is he makes one or odd prince escape from the jail because he feels, what is my father doing? So every time he ends up finding that there are 99, one is missing. Now he is one of those whom Krishna knows that there is going to be a war of dharma, and if this fellow also joins the tyrant hands of Duryodhana, then what is going to happen? So he eliminates him even before the war starts. And he had to release all the 99 prince from the captivity. So he challenges him for a fight, and this man very proudly, he says, okay, I'll fight with Bhimsen, I'll have a hand-to-hand fight. So Bhimsen is Bhimsen. I mean, he has the strength of 1,000 elephants. It's a measure of strength. It's not like he can beat 1,000 elephants, like horsepower. So elephant strength. Before people start shouting, oh, this all mythology. It was a measure of a person's strength. So He fights, and obviously Bhimsen is too strong for him, and his weak spot is in the middle. So he tears him apart and throws. But then Bhim is very happy that I have won the wrestling match, and then he joins. By the time he realizes, turns back, he joins. Now imagine every time Bhima does it, he joins. So he doesn't know what to do. He is at his wit's end. Now after a time, your strength begins to pale. So Sri Krishna, always alert, always smiling. So he gives him an indication. And the indication is, when you throw, build a shivling in between. So quickly when he throws, before the two can join, he out of the mud he builds a shivling. Shivling is very easy to build. You build out of anything and say Om Namah Shivaya. That Shiva is a benevolent God, he immediately comes. So then he cannot join. Now this was a lesson for me later on when I grew up, that it means that anything which you have, any empty space, you must fill it with God. Because if you leave it empty, it will be filled by habit by the same forces. And it's so true, because all anger, frustration, all this comes from the abyss. And if you don't fill the abyss with divine love, which alone can actually fill it, the same problem will come again and again. So, here Mother says that you can live without quarreling. It seems strange to me. It seems strange to say this, because as things are, it would seem on the contrary that life is made for quarreling. For some time you have released, then next day. And if you observe carefully, this is not even sometimes trivial. It is meaningless. Of course, one can understand it's a play of adverse forces when you see that at critical moments, when you are either, just before darshan, these forces become super active. Or sometimes after the darshan, you had such a beautiful experience and you come out, somebody says something, and one has got into it. Why? Because there is a hole which is open. So she says, on the contrary, that life is, it seems strange to say this, because as things are, it would seem that the main occupation of people who are together is to quarrel, overtly or covertly. Cold War is not only between Russia and America, it goes on in every house. Sometimes it's like they don't talk to each other, but there is an inner war. Sometimes it takes open shape. Okay, only we don't have nukes, but we have words which are worse than nukes sometimes. So she says, you do not always come to words. You do not always come to blows, fortunately. But you are in a state of perpetual irritation within, because you do not find around you the perfection that you would yourself wish to realize, and which you find rather difficult to realize. But you find it entirely natural that others should realize it. How often we see people blaming the other person about, you're not good, you don't love enough. So often I ask the question, do you love even forget about love enough? So because one is unable to love, one starts, so this kind of relationship develops, where one person is always at the blaming end. But if the person looked carefully, one sees, because I am unable to love, I am quick to blame the other person. Then she says, try to experience, how can they be like that? You forget how difficult you find it in yourself not to be like that. Try to experience this. It will greatly help you to change yourselves. At the same time, it will bring a sunny tolerance to your relationships with others. The goodwill which comes from understanding, and it will very often put an end to these completely useless quarrels. What is that sunny tolerance? When you work upon yourself on a tendency because you don't have it. Supposing you feel that I must love more truly, more beautifully, and you see how difficult it is. Then when you see in another person this lack of love, you understand it's not easy. So you keep working within yourself and try to harbor a greater and greater flame of love. Try. You will see. And then she gives us a very beautiful way of living, the new way of life. Look upon everything with a benevolent smile. So smile itself is a many times ironic smile, sarcastic smile, sardonic smile. Smile of I don't care. Yet she is saying, suspicious smile. I know, but I am smiling. Smile of benevolence, where you understand. And therefore you are wide enough to, I don't want to use the word forgiveness. Too much forgiveness word makes you feel you have assumed a very high position and you are being, I forgive you. Who are we to forgive and whom, actually? Whole human life, human nature, world is what it is, and it should change. That's the beautiful thing about Shubindra and the mother. They bring a promise of a luminous future. Look upon everything with a benevolent smile. Take all the things which irritate you as a lesson for yourself, and your life will be more peaceful and more effective as well. For a great percentage of your energy certainly goes to waste in the irritation you feel when you do not find in others the perfection that you would like to realize in yourself. If you see something is missing in the other person, it's a sign that let me develop it in myself. Because the world needs it. And it's your need itself. But we waste the energy in irritation, anger, quarreling, and actually it helps nobody and nothing. You stop short at the perfection that others should realize, and you are seldom conscious of the goal you should be pursuing yourself. So the simplest way is, there's a very nice thing I had read long back which stuck with me, though initially it created a bit of a strange feeling. How you should deal with people who try to irritate you, or who say all kinds of things, or whom you don't like for whatever reason, or who are having a dushta bhav towards you. And the answer one of the yogis had given was upeksha. Be indifferent. I said, this is wonderful. Let me try and practice it. I said, how can you just be indifferent? And then I understood over a period of time. Of course, the mother adds something much greater. Not just indifference. Indifference is the first impact you bear it. Don't react or respond to it. But the final answer is love. People who are full of irritation, people who are full of pain, cannot help quarreling. What is it they are missing? They are like sick people. They are suffering inside. They are throwing the poison that they carry within. So what do you do to such a person? You get angry? Sounds so absurd. You understand they need healing. How do you heal? The most powerful medicine ever which can heal is love. It can fill that abyss. They need love. But of course, then you have to harbor that kind of love. You can't heal otherwise. If you are giving love with the idea, okay, at some point of time, this Jama Punji will come back, then it doesn't work out. And it's only possible when our need of love is met by the Divine Mother. Meaning thereby when we open to her to receive love, but we give freely. Not freely doesn't mean everybody okay, but wherever there is a need, wherever you are moved from within to pour this love, there you will give. But not with the idea of getting it back, because as far as we are concerned, we open to the Divine Mother. This is the tapasya of love that the mother speaks of, and receive from her directly. If you are conscious of it, well, then begin with the work which is given to you. That is to say, realize what you have to do, and do not concern yourself with what others do. Because, after all, it is not your business. Once somebody complained to the mother. True stories, many of them are like that. One of them was where someone complained to the mother he saw a sadhak, the door was little open. And he saw the sadhak in a very compromising state with somebody, a maid or someone. And the person goes and complains to the mother, shocked. Mother, you know what I saw? And mother said, you have seen it? Forget about it. It's not your business. That's the end of the story. It's not your business. Another story where someone goes and says, this is in Champaklal Speaks, this second story. First one I read in Ravindraji's book. Champaklalji says that once, ashram X used to carry ashram stamp. I don't know what that stamp was like, but stamped from the ashram. Maybe grown in certain ways, whatever it is. So there were people who were selling it in the market. getting some money. And it was very odd because it carried the ashram stamp. So when the mother was told about it, "Mother, the people who are selling the eggs of the ashram, stamped ashram, in the market," mother smiled and said, "My child, I know it." That's it. A third example, when Jugalda and once, this story he himself told me. He said, Amal Kiran and Nirodha would talk near the Samadhi. Actually, very sweetly they used to talk. I have heard it. And when they would talk, at least I never felt disturbed, because every time Amalda will say, "Sure, Bindu," it was such a beauty. It was like, what that makhan and honey, butter and honey melting through his mouth. The way he said, he had a wonderful accent, and he would say, "Sure, Bindu." So, the moment he would say, and both were hard of hearing. So if he would ask something and he would also say, "Yeah, what did you say?" loudly. Some people used to feel disturbed. To me, it was delight. But anyways, it's a little odd because people will get a wrong example. So Jugalda would often feel, should I tell the mother or not? So he wrote and told the mother, "Mother, I find it very odd and they are much senior to me. What should I do? Should I tell them? I feel like telling them, or should I not tell them?" Mother's reply was, "If you tell them, they may change. If you don't tell them, you will certainly change and progress." And then she says, "Okay, you can tell them once if you feel like telling." So this was the way how she would leave aside these small petty things in which our minds get preoccupied and move toward the great goal. What a vision! What a waste of life it will be if we just got involved with all these petty quarrels, noticing and all these things that we see. It's not our business. Our business is to realize the divine and turn all things to honey. That is the rule of divine life, Sri Aurobindo's aphorism. Turn everything. How, it will help you in growing and progress. Like the ass who fell in the well. A nice little story that he was in the well. So people would throw sand and he would shake and the sand would go below. So like that, step by step. Fantastic story, realm of impossible, but still. He didn't allow himself to be buried under the sand. He would shake it off, it'll come below, and so he would go a little up. So when people throw, use it as a means to grow. And the best way to the true attitude is simply to say, all those around me, all the circumstances of my life, all the people near me are a mirror held up by the divine consciousness to show me the progress I must make. So very often people say, "Oh, how can we ask now, Mother, we have a problem, how do we learn?" Guidance is there in life. Because in life there is grace. In life, in every movement, there is the divine presence. See how beautifully Ishopanishad says, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. In every movement, hidden at the core is the divine, and it's trying to come out through the movement. So actually, if we are conscious, we'll find the guidance everywhere in life. So here is the guidance. The best way to the true attitude is simply to say, all those around me, all the circumstances of my life, all the people near me are a mirror held up to me by the divine consciousness to show me the progress I must make. That's all our business is. Everything that shocks me in others means a work I have to do in myself. So the real sign that one has progressed is no more shocks you. It shows you that there is a divine movement. You see that element of truth and leave the rest. You have gained. You have grown richer by that little ingot of gold you have drawn from that. And perhaps if one carried true perfection in oneself, one would discover it more often in others. Because then you will see that in everyone there is that grain of perfection, some little truth. Pick up that truth. Leave the rest. Leave the distortions covering aside and pick up that little truth. And it will help us grow inwardly rich. Namaste.